Hey, welcome back to the Lightspeed Social Agency YouTube channel. I'm your host, as always, Cody Owen, and I am sitting down today with Jay Worth. He is the content marketing manager at SingleOPs, and I saw him through some mutuals on LinkedIn from the green industry and saw some of the posts that he was making about employment issues in the green industry. And I just felt like we were really on the same page. So I sent him a message. And then we chatted a couple weeks ago now, and now we're getting together to talk on the YouTube channel. So Jay, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, it is my pleasure, man. I really love the industry and I want to see businesses succeed. So anything I can do to do that, we're simpatico, man.
My camera is trying to jump off my computer there. There we go. But yeah, so when I read through your blog posts, I felt like it was a breath of fresh air for somebody else in like something adjacent to the industry to be calling out some of the problems I feel like I've seen a lot and I've like begged people to fix. And so it was so nice to see that. So if you want to dive in and just say like, what is like the biggest problem you think in the way the green industry operates with respect to employees?
I don't know that I can identify one. I think it's death by 1,000 cuts. It's there's a bunch of little things that all kind of add up. I think one of those that you obviously have to think about, and some of you are going to shut this video off right now, and that's fine. You don't want to listen to me say it, but pay is something you have to think about. I know what labor issues do to business owners. I really do, in terms of what the labor burden is and how much it costs. I have some experience with that. I've never owned a business, but I've been on the management side, so I do get that in the green industry specifically. But I don't think that, and part of the reason you and I connected was actually I posted about a report from Jobber, where the average landscaper salary in the U.S. is $14.62 an hour. I have literally, I posted it in the blog series that you're talking about. I've literally seen tweets from people standing outside of Five Guys where the average team member makes $20 an hour.
Yeah.
Now, we're not talking a difference of like a couple of cents. We're around $5 an hour difference, right? So I think that's one of those things that, as painful as it is, you kind of have to cough up, and especially depending on the vertical. Now, I had some arborists push back on me and say, I can't get a guy to drag brush for $20 an hour. And that's probably true. But yeah, arborists, that's a much more dangerous line of work than like a lawn care technician, right? It's just, you're kind of talking apples and oranges. Having said that, OSHA and the Ohio Landscape Nursery Association did a co-study together, and they analyzed all the workplace incidences between the years of 2001, 2017, 17 years worth of data. And they found that nearly 1 in 5 of those workplace incidents for landscape companies was considered a serious injury. It's still dangerous work, right? You got to cough up. That's part of it.
And a big thing I've come back on, because a lot of times when you tell landscaping business owners, you need to pay more to be competitive with, if you want to steal the people that could go work at Burger King for $18 an hour, you have to pay $18 an hour or more to get them. And the pushback I hear is that like, I don't have the margin to support that. And if that is the case, you're not charging enough to support 100%. the prevailing wage in your market. Like it's not, these aren't static things. You're going to have to increase prices to increase wages. Something has to give.
And you know what? You say, well, I'm going to take a hit. I'm going to lose business to Joe down the street who is willing to cut into his margin. Guess what? Joe down the street, that's not sustainable, right? He's not going to stay in business that long doing it, undercutting everybody. Because he's operating on a razor thin margin too, right?
Yeah, Joe doesn't have venture capital backing to drown you out of the market.
This is what I'm saying, right? So I think that's a big part of it. I think in terms of lower hanging fruit for a lot of businesses, there are a couple of things that you can do that really would help in terms of recruiting, but also in terms of retention, right? And I'll just say, going back to the pay for 1 second, you're not competing necessarily against Burger King or Five Guys. You're competing against Amazon. You're competing against construction, right? You're competing people that want to work and do something physically. I guarantee there's no guy out there framing walls for $14.62 an hour. So
yeah,
you got to think about it in those terms. That's the labor pool you're competing with.
definitely.
But the lower hanging fruit, the easier things for a lot of business owners to do that I just don't see many of us doing right now. One, you need to create career ladders. You need to create a path to advancement, and you need to communicate that aggressively, internally, and to your new hires. Right? It sounds really difficult. It's something you probably only need to put a lot of effort into every few years. It's not something you need to, unless you just grow at this stupid, ridiculous pace. And in that case, good for you. That's a good problem to have. But you just start at the most basic level, right? Like you hire a general laborer. What do they need to do to become a crew leader? What does that crew leader need to do to become a supervisor? What does that supervisor need to do to become a manager? And just think about it in terms of, like, what qualifications do you want them to get? Do you want them to get any certifications? Maybe you want them to get a certified snow professional if you do snow. Maybe they need to be a certified arborist. Maybe they need to get their landscape industry certified lawn care technician, whatever it is, right? There's CDL. Figure out what those things that they need at each level are and explain that to them. So like, oh, here's where you're at on the org chart. Here's the list of qualifications you need to get to the next level. And just watch how your ambitious people really step up. I mean, you've got folks that want to get promoted. You really do, sitting in your organization, and they're not doing anything right now because they don't know what to do to get promoted. So that's kind of low-hanging fruit. And then the really difficult part for a lot of owners is once they hit that, you have to actually promote them. Like, right? If they meet all the requirements, you got to cough up and give them a title and a pay increase. I watched, and if you can't, you at least need to have the conversation with them, right? I watched in a company I worked for, a buddy of mine came on the market, and I knew the guy was going to be a tremendous asset. He just connects with people in a way like I've never seen. He builds rapport almost instantly with people. And I knew he was going to be a great salesperson. And I just said, hey, I went to my owner and I said, hey, I've got a friend that's on the market. You need to talk to him, figure out a way to get him in. And to his credit, he went and interviewed the guy, and he called him back and he said, hey, look, I don't have anything in sales right now. What I've got is a lawn care technician. I think I'm going to have a sales job. I should have a sales job opening up in less than a year. Would you be willing to get a foot in the door and do that? And yeah, guy came on. He was a lawn care tech for a year. Sales position opened up. Now he's supervising a sales team, this guy, right? So if you can't give him that, make sure, and in that time, he had to prove himself. Like there were milestones he had to hit as a lawn care tech in order to be considered for that, what he considered to be a promotion. That my friend, he wanted to be in sales. He saw sales as a promotion. So he had to meet his milestones in order to earn that. You got to do it once they get there. I think it
sounds like a big part of what you're saying here is like set clear expectations and then 100%. Follow through on them, which is the thing that I think a lot of lawn care business owners know from the like HR side, like, putting someone on a personal improvement plan when they're like on the bad side of things. But it's super important to implement the same kind of ladder and expectations on the positive end, right? Like we don't want to just be, disciplinarians who are helping employees out the door. We want to be giving them an opportunity to work toward bigger and better things with the company.
100%. A study by Society of Human Resource Management, right, or SHRM, found that 82% of employees would quit because they couldn't advance their careers. And that's across, and I'll actually read a quote from it here. The survey found there was a common sentiment across all participating age groups. Indeed, the opportunity for job progression was a priority to the overwhelming majority, regardless of age. This isn't just like young people. This is everybody. This is your managers, right? Like they want to know how to become directors or VPs, right? You've got ambitious people sitting in your organization that could be adding more value. They just don't know what you need them to do.
Yeah.
So show them.
On
Explain
the
it to them.
retention front, I wanted to talk to you about another thing that I have seen online and a thing I experienced when I was working in high school, where I got hired. I was like, 16, kind of naive, wandered into the restaurant that hired me, and someone who'd been there longer than me, just while in the course of while we were working, she asked me how much I was getting paid, and I just told her, and I was making like $1 an hour more than her while she was training me. And she got, rightfully pissed that, but that was like what they needed to pay to get high schoolers in the door at that point. But she'd been there long enough and they weren't increasing her pay to match us.
That's awful.
I
hope you got an earful from her.
She hated me from that day. And
as if it's your fault.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought about that recently and was like, I don't remember why she hated me so much, but I think it was that, because that was our first conversation. Yeah. But I think it is like super important to consider when you're raising your wages because you can't get people in the door. If you're not backfilling and raising the wages on the guys who have hung around, they're going to get poached, right? Like that's what's going to happen.
100%. I saw a post on LinkedIn, and shame on me, I don't know the guy's name. He's left since then and started his own company, and it's a different industry, so I get that. Just stick with the analogy, right? This is a guy who was in some sort of management position at Netflix. And now Netflix is like famous for their employee retention, the way they treat their employees. This is just, the gold standard almost. But what they did is this guy's supervisor, manager, vice president, whatever, popped his head in the door and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know you're getting a pay raise." He was like, I had been with the company like 8 months. It was like, what the heck, And he goes, "Not that I'm not going to tell you, thank you, I am, but like, why? I don't know that I've done anything. I haven't completed any major projects. It's not like And he said, and the manager or the vice president said to him, "We just had to hire another person at your same like level, right? Same level, same title as you, and we had to pay them more to get them. So we're giving you a pay raise." Is that not the right thing to do? It's the right thing to do.
Well, and it's the exact same scenario, but instead of an employee finding out through a conversation with a coworker that like someone at the same level is getting paid more than me and that being a negative experience, you flipped it into a 110%
loyalty
positive
building
experience. Exactly.
100%. Absolutely. I think so many owners, not because they're bad people, but just because they're busy, don't stop to consider how they make people feel. And I know it sounds like all squishy and touchy-feely and whatever, but like, put yourself in your employee's shoes, right? Like if you found out, if you're that, your coworker, the waitress or server or whatever, in the restaurant you were working at, how do you feel if you're her versus the guy at Netflix, right? If you want to hang on to your people, you've got to really take care of them. And then the other thing that I think is just kind of like low-hanging fruit, easy to do, with just some really thoughtful effort, is onboarding. I think if you're not planning for onboarding, you're really, really just setting yourself up for fail, and you're setting yourself up for a cycle of having to constantly recruit and rehire new people. I don't think onboarding is super complicated in most companies. I think people just don't dedicate enough attention to it. Think about all the things that person is going to have to do every single day. And I'm not just talking about once they hit the field. I'm talking about from the time they pull in the parking lot, right? And I included this story in my blog, but I worked for a landscape company where all of the heavy equipment and all the trucks and everything that were parked behind the building, and they had to drive through the employee parking lot to get out the gate. Well, as a result, to reduce safety incidences, they wanted people to back in. Like, that was something they communicated. Back into your parking spot. That way, you're not backing out and have a blind spot and getting hit by an international coming around the corner of the building, right? Like, how to clock in, any tools that they're going to be using for the day. record a short video, like 30 seconds from the manager that they're going to be working for, the supervisors are going to be working under. Say, hey, if you have any questions when you get here day one, let me know. Thanks. And have them text it to them. I mean, there's just so many ways to like really thoughtfully introduce them to the company, to the culture, even before they get in the building. That I think that people just don't think through and kind of miss. And
when it's such a bad experience.
How to use the time clock, right? Like they want to get paid. Show them how to punch in, like right away. I don't know. There's a lot of things that you could do.
It's such a bad experience to come into a new position and kind of just be thrown into the deep end, because it's constantly like doing things wrong and being corrected. And, just it's a very sink or swim thing where you can have someone who just hasn't learned to swim yet, and they need to be taught. And they'll be an excellent employee once they're taught. And if you have this kind of attitude of like, we just need warm bodies, throw them out there, we'll figure it out, you're going to end up letting people go who would have been good employees if the circumstances had been right.
100%. I couldn't agree with you anymore. I think one of the things that was really eye-opening for me, because I've had like anybody that's 40 years old and has some work history behind them, I've had really good onboarding experiences. I've had really bad onboarding experiences. One of the things that really opened up my eyes to this, I was listening to the NALP Young Professionals podcast, and they had these two guys on. The guests were these two professors that teach landscape architecture somewhere out west. One of them's maybe at BYU. I can't remember the other one is. And they were talking about the students that they're coaching and working with. And these two professors are relaying stories about like, oh yeah, I had two students who took internships with such and such a company, got through the onboarding process, decided it wasn't for them. The onboarding wasn't good enough. And they literally dropped out of their internship, picked up another one midsummer. Like, this is what you're dealing with. Like, you have to be thoughtful in how you approach this. You have to prepare people, set people up for success. Think through every single thing they're going to need to know, do, clock into, sign into, where they put their uniforms if you require uniforms, when they're dirty so that Cintas can clean them for you, launder them for you. Everything they need to know. You need to think through and have somebody walk them through intentionally. Now, I know it's a lot, but like, if they are asking questions and you constantly hear, nobody told me where to do this. Nobody told me how to use this tool. Nobody told me where to put this back, where this goes once I'm done using it. Like,
well, and what you end up with is employees sort of ad hoc telling people what to do, and you end up with miscommunications. I worked in the restaurant industry for a long time, and I, got onboarded really successfully at, one restaurant, and another was just sort of like, we hope you can make it. And I remember like getting written up at a restaurant for doing something wrong. And I was like, the other waiters told me to do it this way. And they were like, what? That's not the policy. And I was like, I guess you should have trained me differently. Because you end up having employees try to fill the gaps because they don't want to have to come clean up after you. And they're just going to do it the way they think is best if they haven't been trained correctly either. And you just end up with like a generational problem of now you have processes you didn't write that are in place in your business.
That's it. It's all about documenting your processes. And so like, if you hear whoever you have in charge of training, let's put it this way, you need to listen to your onboarding process, right? Because if you hear people that are onboarding your new hires say things like, everybody does it a little differently, that's a big red flag for you as an owner.
Yeah.
Right? Because that means nobody knows how you want it done.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think, and I won't go through my whole, there's a guide. I think you said you might put a link in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The whole guide, but the other one that I think is just really, really low hanging fruit that a lot of owners miss is communicate why you're in the industry. right? I happen to love working in the green industry. I've gone away from the green industry. I had a job in selling advertising, B2B. I made more money in that 1 year than I ever thought I would see in my entire life, and I was miserable. And I came back to the green industry, went back to knocking doors, selling lawn care, door to door. It's an incredible space. You really do have the opportunity to make a difference in people's lives. Two of the coolest days I ever had in my life. One, I helped treat ash trees on a presidential homestead for EAB and preserve the. And it was like the injection method was really cool. You could watch the trees pulling the material in. It was like this 200-year-old ash tree is drinking its medicine. It was like the coolest thing I ever.
That's awesome.
I got home and talked about it for an hour with my wife, and she was like, "My day was fine. Thanks for asking." I just couldn't quit talking about it. It was so cool. But that tree is going to be there longer. I know it'll need to be retreated or whatever, but it was sustained so that other people in future generations, it was there when a president lived there a couple hundred years ago, and now it's here, and we're preserving it for the future, so we can pass it on to our kids and our grandkids. That's a really, really cool day at the office.
Yeah.
I had a family that for whatever reason, the builder had used clover on their new build instead of like annual rye, and to hold the grate in place. But there was just literally like hundreds of bees all over this clover, and their kids couldn't go outside and play. They kept getting stung, and they were afraid to go outside. And she was like, "Can you help me with this?" I said, "Absolutely." After one treatment, the kids were able to go outside without being freaked out. And after two, the clover was all but gone. And these people were just so grateful. Their house, which they felt trapped in, was now and it had an extended living space, and the kids had a home. Like they could run around their yard and play on the play set. That's a cool day. That's a cool day at the office, man. So I think we're really, really, really awful at communicating how rewarding the industry can be.
Absolutely.
I don't think we do a really good job, especially when you do it right. There's a woman who's very, very smart. She runs a landscape company in, I want to say Medford, Massachusetts, but I might be getting the name of the city wrong. You can Google it. It's called The Garden Continuum is the name of her company. Her name is Monique Allen. She does the entire, she has customers sign a 3 to 5 year contract with her before they'll do any work on the property. She doesn't use any chemicals at all, which I'm like 40 years old. And I'm like, Monique, I want to come intern with you. I don't know how you do this. It's impressive. And she was on our SingleOPs podcast, and she was talking about the honorableness of the work. Like what we do is honorable, right? And we need to learn to do it honorably. We need to give people a sense of that the righteousness of what we're doing when we do it the right way. And that just really resonated with me. And I was like, and I had been feeling that way, but she just really kind of gave it a voice. I think that we just need to figure out a way. Talk about why you got into the industry. If you got in the industry because you love trees, you love climbing, you love being out in nature, you love making an impact on homeowners or on a school district if you do commercial work or whatever the reason. Maybe you're really like, you love snow plowing at a warehouse because you're giving people a chance to go to work in the middle of a storm. Yeah. Whatever it is that gets you excited, talk about that in the interview process. Please talk about it with your existing team. Communicate to them a sense of purpose in what you're doing. And I think you're going to find that you get way squabbles reduce, you get way more people rowing in the same direction. And those people that aren't a good fit will kind of self-eject. And the people that are a good fit will bring their friends. Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm off my soapbox there, but that's one of my. I just think we're really bad at talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I hear people in the industry describe it as just mowing grass, like that kind of thing. That just kind of denigrates what you're doing. When no, you're making people's homes nicer places to be.
Absolutely.
And we push.
You're not just installing a patio. You're giving a family a place to create memories for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
We just need to reframe how we talk about it.
Yeah. Jay, thank you so much for talking to us today. There will be a link down in the description to the blog post series that I read from Jay. That is why he is on the YouTube channel today. So hop on that and read those. They are super valuable. They will help you in retention, improving your culture, all of the things that I've been harping on the last few weeks here on the YouTube channel. I think I yelled at you a whole bunch to like try to get you to realize that there's a problem. And I think Jay has some really good solutions for you in those blog posts.
Cool. Hey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. If anyone wants to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I feel free to just send me a connection request. I'm happy to do that.
Awesome. All right, man. Until next week, this has been the Lightspeed Social Agency YouTube channel.